Sometimes a rivalry playoff game is an instant classic, an absolute nail-biter. And then, other times, it's a complete and total demolition. Today, we're breaking down a result so lopsided it honestly sent shockwaves through the entire league. How did one of the NFL's very best teams get so thoroughly dismantled on the biggest stage? Well, let's get into it.
Yeah, 41-6. That was the final score. In a divisional playoff game between two of the NFC's heavyweights, the Seattle Seahawks didn't just beat the San Francisco 49ers, they absolutely took them apart, piece by piece. So that's really the big question we're tackling, right? How does that even happen? This wasn't some fluke, it was pure domination. And the story of this blowout, believe it or not, doesn't start at kickoff. Nope. It starts 2 weeks earlier. The fuse for this playoff explosion was actually lit in the final week of the regular season, in a game that basically decided the fate of the entire NFC. So check this out. It's Week 18, the NFC West title and the #1 seed are on the line. The Seahawks go into San Francisco and just put on a defensive masterclass, winning 13-3. That one single win gives Seattle a first-round bye and home field advantage. Meanwhile, the 49ers, they tumbled all the way down to the 6th seed, which meant a tough road ahead for the entire postseason. So, coming into this playoff rematch, you had two teams on completely different tracks. One was at the absolute peak of its powers, and the other was just trying to hold on and survive. And the contrast here is just stark. You had the Seahawks defense, who called themselves the dark side. And for good reason. They were #1 in the league, giving up just over 17 points a game. They were rested, playing at home, the whole deal. And the 49ers, they were dealing with just devastating injuries to All-Pros George Kittle and Nick Bosa. These are cornerstones of their team. And this quote from 49ers coach Kyle Shanahan really just captures their whole mindset perfectly. They knew the odds were stacked against them. They were beaten up, on the road, facing the best team in the conference. They were trying to embrace the challenge, but man, the stage was set for a monumental task. Any shred of hope the 49ers had of pulling off an upset was just extinguished, almost immediately. Seriously, the game wasn't just decided in the first quarter. It was decided in the first 13 seconds. 13 seconds. That's it? Before either offense had even touched the football, Seahawks returner Rashid Shaheed takes the opening kickoff 95 yards to the house. The stadium just exploded, and just like that, it's 7-0 Seahawks. It was an absolutely stunning, game-changing moment. Shaheed's quote here really says it all. For the Seahawks, it was a dream start. But for the 49ers, it was an absolute nightmare, and one they were never going to wake up from. But look, that kickoff return, that was just the opening act. From that moment on, Seattle put on a clinic in all three phases of the game: offense, defense, and special teams. They just systematically took the 49ers apart. On offense, Seattle didn't need to be flashy, they just needed to be physical. They lined up and basically told the 49ers, hey, we're going to run the football and there's nothing you can do about it. And San Francisco, without Nick Bosa anchoring that D-line, was pretty much powerless to stop them. In fact, the entire story of Seattle's offensive dominance that day can pretty much be summed up with this one simple, powerful number: 3. That's how many times running back Kenneth Walker III found the end zone. The guy was a battering ram, just consistently moving the chains, controlling the clock, and physically imposing Seattle's will on that depleted 49ers front. And what about when the 49ers did have the ball? Well, the dark side defense was just relentless. DeMarcus Lawrence forces a strip sack to end one drive. Ernest Jones IV gets an interception in the red zone to kill their best scoring chance. Then there's a 4th down sack by Leonard Williams, another turnover on downs forced by Lawrence. They just created chaos and gave the 49ers offense absolutely no room to breathe. After the final whistle blew, the post-game comments, as you can imagine, painted a really clear picture of two teams at the complete opposite ends of the emotional spectrum. You can just hear the resignation in Christian McCaffrey's voice. There were no excuses, just a simple, blunt acknowledgement that, yeah, they had been thoroughly outplayed in every single part of the game. And then, on the other side, you've got DeMarcus Lawrence. For the Seahawks, this wasn't just a win, it was validation. It was the peak of a season's worth of work, proving to themselves and everyone else that they were the best team in the conference. So when you put all these pieces together, this blowout wasn't caused by one single thing. It was a perfect storm, really. A complete collapse, with all these factors coming together at the absolute worst possible time for San Francisco.
So let's just recap the anatomy of this thing one more time. It started with that explosive special teams touchdown that set an immediate dominant tone. That was followed by a physical, clock-eating rushing offense and a suffocating dark side defense that forced turnovers at will. And all of this was built on a foundation of those pregame factors, the key injuries for the 49ers and the huge momentum Seattle carried in from that Week 18 win. It was a complete failure for one side and a dominant signature win for the other.
And that brings us to our final thought. A performance this dominant, on a stage this big, against a rival this familiar, well, it changes things. It sends a message to the rest of the league. So the question we're all left with is this. After a performance like that, are the Seattle Seahawks no longer just a contender, but maybe the clear team to beat for the Lombardi Trophy?